Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this satellite event of Summer Symposium of Ease. I'm sure you have been having a fantastic couple of days if you are attending other sessions as well. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Where are you from? We would love to see that. While you do that, let us appreciate the sponsors who are supporting this particular event that is happening this summer. We are quite grateful to all of our sponsors, especially JAMS, who has been supporting us immensely, and that made actually possible that our low-income country participants could join here freely. So we very much appreciate their contributions. So let us move on with our today's session. Let me share my screen. Well, over the next 1 hour or so, we will be talking about the importance of global research in achieving the SDGs, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. And it is one of the satellite events that is happening. This particular satellite event is being organized by the Environment and Sustainability Committee of EASE. And my name is Haseeb Irfanullah. I am one of the co-chairs of this committee, and I will be the moderator for this session. I will be very briefly introduce to you the session. I will introduce our E&S, which is Environment and Sustainability Committee, what we have been doing over the last few years. I will introduce the panelists, then we will start listening to three of our panelists. I will be introducing them to you in a bit. And of course, we will be having our discussion or question and answer. Feel free to, as you listen to our panelists, please feel free to share your thoughts, your comments, your questions in the chat. I'm sure our panelists will be answering to them when they can. So about this session, it has been more than 10 years now, isn't it? Since the adoption of the UN Sustainable Development Goals happened in September 2015. And we all know that to have the SDG achieved, we need a strong evidence-based solutions. But we are passing through a challenging time, no doubt about it. When we talk about the global research system, we talk about international collaboration, things are changing very rapidly over the last few years. And of course, given that fact, we also see that the role of the researchers, the journals, the publishers, the editors, the reviewers, they're also changing. So over the next hour or so, we will be exploring how can leadership, policies, practices in scholarly publishing can actively contribute or support SDGs progress. And while exploring that, we believe that we will be able to see that how this kind of discussion and conversation and action can encourage global participation, equity in authorship that we talk about a lot, interdisciplinary research could be promoted as well, and the transparency and data integrity will be strengthened. And of course, through all these conversation action, we will be seeing that SDG-related practices are integrated into editorial workflow and policies. So that's the boundary that we are having for this session. Moving on to the Environment and Sustainability Committee, as I said, I'm one of the co-chairs. We also have Novorka working together or leading it, co-leading it, and we have our fantastic committee members, Ruhi, Eva, Tibor, Rachel, Shelly, Joe, and I'm sure you have already seen some of them because Eva was moderating the previous session as well. What we have done, of course, you can find it on our website. I will be putting the link in the chat as well if you want to learn more about us. But this particular committee, it is one of the special committees of EASE. It was established back in 2020, And the very next year was a fantastic year for us because we became a signatory of United Nations SDG Publishers Compact. Many of you are, I'm sure, are signatory to that as well. We organized our 5th conference, East Conference, and the theme was Role of Editors in Promoting Sustainability in Scholarly Publishing. So we are very proud of that having that kind of theme for our conference. We had our manifesto, environment manifesto there. We started our virtual global forest, which is actually forest. We actually planting trees. There are almost 3,000 trees planted over the last 5.5 years. And we started collaborating with other agencies like HESI, which is a higher education sustainability initiative. We have been jointly submitting editorials for the climate change action. 2 years back, we continued working with our sister organizations like ISMT, who we will be having a session of them a couple of hours later today. In 2024, the survey we did in 2022 on SDG Compact, we published the article in 2024, and we continued with different webinars on different topics throughout the year. Last year was a very interesting year. I would like to highlight the fact we launched SDG checklist. I'm sure the link will be shared in the chat very soon. And we will be able to see how we can, as a journal, as a publisher, we can follow our activities, whether it is aligned with the SDGs goals or not. Last year, May, we had our 8th conference, East Conference in Oslo. And we had a session there. How can you contribute to your journal's sustainability? We had some fantastic posters there as well. One of them were greening conferences. You will be able to enjoy those on EASE website as well. This year, of course, we are organizing this particular session, satellite session, in this EASE Summer Symposium. We also have a poster. Feel free to find it out in all the posters we have this week. And we are also having our social media campaign. I have just posted a couple here on International Women's Day, International Day for Biodiversity, which just happened a couple of weeks back. So this is all about us, the committee, Environment and Sustainability Committee. Now let me introduce our fantastic panelists. We have 3 panelists among us. First, we will be hearing from Carlos Henrique de Brito Cruz. He is with Elsevier. He is the Senior Vice President, Research Networks. We also have Johanna Havemann. She is the Open Science Trainer and Consultant, and she working for and leading the Access to Perspective. We will be hearing from her about that initiative as well. And our third panelist is Nikesh Gosalia. He is the Chief Partnership Officer of Cactus, based in the UK. And of course, I will be moderating the session on the importance of global research in achieving the SDGs. So let us move on and hear from our speakers. First, let me stop sharing the screen. Now I'd like to request Carlos. Carlos, would you, I hand it over the floor to you, or as they say, the screen to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Haseeb. Thanks for the invitation to participate in this webinar and in this event. I'm going to talk to you about how the landscape, the geography of research in the world has been changing in the last many years, maybe 70 years, creating a situation which is now completely different from what we have ever had in the world of science, which is there are more authors of research publications working in low and middle income countries than there are in high income countries. This is something that has never happened before, since the times of Isaac Newton or even before Francis Bacon. Most of the authors of science worked in the richer part of the globe. And now, since a few years ago, most of them are working in the poorer part of the globe. The number of research publications has been growing strongly, a rate of 4.2% per year for the last 10 years on average. This rise in the number of publications has been driven by the growth in the number of authors. As I just mentioned, the growth of authors has been stronger in low and middle income countries, which are all the countries in the world where the per capita income is below about $14,000. And this growth is clearly reflected in the volume of SDG targeting research with authors in those low and middle income countries. So I'll start by showing you these three panes that bring information about, on the left, how the number of publications has been growing in the world as a whole, and the lower pane shows the growth rates by 10-year period. So you will see that in the last 10-year period for the world, 2024, the growth rate was close to 5% per year, a little bit above 4% per year. Now, if you consider the set of the group of countries, which are the high income countries, then you will see that the growth, that's the orange curves. The growth rate has been higher before and has been decreasing steadily since 1994. And for the last 10 years, the growth rate for the number of publications with authors in high-income countries is below 2% per year. And in the green curves, you see the growth of number of publications. Those are, I should say, counted by fractional count. The growth in the number of publications that have authors in low and middle income countries. And you see how the green bars here are substantially higher than the orange bars. They are around 10, 12%. And for the last 10 years, the growth rate has been about 10% per year. However, key indicator for capacity to create scientific ideas, it's not really the number of articles, but it's more in the count of the number of authors affiliated with entities in each country, each region. And when you look at the number of authors, we will see that while the number of articles grew by 21 times, the number of authors in the world from 1970 to 2024 grew by 38 times. There are now 9.4 million authors of research publications, and 58% of them, as you see in the middle column here, work in low and middle income countries. It's important to note that I'm saying they work. I don't know where they were born, but from the data in the publications, we know where they work because they inform the entities they are affiliated to. And 43% of those authors are in high income countries. Low and middle income countries have been working for many years to develop their own research systems, training researchers, building universities, creating research funders, advancing research centers, and business research. And I know that most of you are at this point thinking that, wow, but this growth in the low and middle income countries is mostly what happens in China. China is very, very important, but it's not the only one. Out of 120 low and middle income countries, 105 have growth rate in the number of authors, which are larger than the average for the high income countries. So countries like India, Brazil, Pakistan, Indonesia, Thailand, Indonesia, South Africa, several countries. They have been busy building research systems. And that is shown in the two sets of curves here. Here, the red curve in the middle pane shows how low and middle income countries have a number of authors that is growing very strongly, and for the last 10 years at a rate of 10% per year of growth, while in high income countries, the rate of growth has been for the last 10 years, 5% per year. So the two curves crossed few years ago, maybe 2021, 2022. And from the growth rates, it's easy to understand that the distance between the red curve and the green curve is going to increase in time. So each year we have a little bit more share of the authors working in low and middle income countries. In the pane on the right, I specified, I redefined the category so that you can see what's happening in different parts of the world. So you see China with a very strong growth rate in the blue curve. Then in second, it's a category I named low and middle income countries 28, which are the 28 low and middle income countries that have the largest number of authors. And you will see that those 28 countries, which are listed here on the right, they now have more authors than the 28 European countries, which is the European Union plus the UK. And then in fourth, the number of authors in the United States. So you see that if you pay attention to what's happening between 2020 and 2030, the order of the curves is completely different from what we had if you look at 1980 or 1990. In the period 1970, 1980, 1990, the contribution, the number of authors in low and middle income countries was negligible compared to the number of authors in high income countries. So this is a big change for the world in terms of the capacity to produce and to create science and create new ideas. Now, just as an illustration, what did those countries did to get there? And here the left pane illustrates that the number of PhDs awarded per year has been growing strongly in low and middle income countries. Here I show the data for China, India, and Brazil. And you will see that China overcame, the dashed lines are high income countries, the three main ones. China overcame the United States and Germany and the UK a few years ago. India now graduates more PhDs every year as compared to the UK, so it's the third largest country in terms of PhD awards, and Brazil has just overcome the UK and very soon is going to graduate every year more PhDs than Germany. So this is to give you an idea of what did those countries do. And it's important to bear in mind that they have done that mostly with their own money. It's not that they had done that with assistance from the world. Assistance from the world is relevant. It helped, it contributed in many regions of the world. But what makes low and middle income countries move ahead is when they use their own resources to create their institutions and to advance. Now, when you consider the sustainable
Carlos,
development,
you have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
I will. I'm finishing. When we look at the sustainable development goals, we see in the left pane that now there are more authors in low and middle income countries than there are in high income countries. And the curve on the right shows a distribution which is similar to the one that I have shown to you before for the all topics count of authors. China first, low and middle income 28, then Europe of 28, and then the United States. If we look at specific sustainable development goals, we will see that there is a convergence and actually surpassing by the low and middle income countries in many SDGs, but not in all. I illustrate here in the upper pane two cases, zero hunger, SDG 2, and SDG 7, where low and middle income countries now have more human capacity in research than high income countries. However, in SDG 1 and SDG 10, which are key for low and middle income countries, they still do not have more authors dedicated to those topics as compared to high income countries. If you want a full picture, here it is, all SDGs, and you will see back in 2014, the distribution followed the green line there. In all SDGs, low and middle income countries had less than 50% of the authors, and now the blue line for 2024 shows that in most SDGs, low and middle income countries have more authors. In conclusion, I wanted to highlight to you that there is this growth in research publications. This growth is driven by growth in the number of authors. That happens for all topics and happens also for sustainable development goals. The rate of growth in number of authors in low and middle income countries is twice as much as it is in high income countries. More authors tackle more themes in sustainability-related research. There's a clear advance from 2014 to 2024. And for 10 SDGs, more than half of the authors in the planet are working in low and middle income countries. There are some challenges worth mentioning. One is that linkages between academia, corporate and government sectors need strengthening in low and middle income countries, and that is hampered in most low and middle income countries, few exceptions, due to the lack of R&D in the business sector. And the business sector is where things are produced, right? Services are provided. So this is a very important challenge to be tackled. There are opportunities in low and middle income countries to low and middle income countries research collaborations, which are not being used at this moment. They tend always to collaborate with the high income countries. And it's important to have an adequate balance between applied and basic research. And last but not least, advances in low and middle income countries have not, I hope, yet been reflected in the international implicit and explicit governance of research. For example, composition of committees, panels, work groups, editorial boards, multilateral research advice, college of peer reviewers. And this is something publishers should pay attention to. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Carlos. A fantastic presentation and such amazing numbers, isn't it, over the last few decades. Thank you very much. and it has already stirred some conversation in the chat. You can have a look into that, Carlos. Now let us move on to the next presentation. Joe, you have 12 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Thanks for having me. Also, I want to just highlight with reference to SDG 15, Life on Land. I'm currently in the process of adopting a dog from a shelter. So therefore, adopt, don't shop if you're considering getting a new housemate. Just as a side note, so my name is Johanna Havemann. I'm a consultant trainer for open science communication. Based in Berlin. I have a background in research in biology, molecular biology to be precise. I have worked with the United Nations Environment Program for some time, a few years back. I'm the founder and coordinator of Africa Archive, a continental research repository, and the founder and director at Access to Perspectives, the consultancy agency. We, like with Access to Perspectives, our aim is to support globally inclusive research management and science communication to benefit society and the planet. We do that through training and consulting and talks like this one on topics across the research workflow, including health and well-being in academia, because it's part of being alive and a professional and a human being. Here are some of the human beings I'm working with, project-based. So each are their own professionals, entrepreneurs, researchers. Yeah, and they come from, so as a group, we basically represent all inhabited continents of the planet. I just want to highlight, which I think we can all easily agree on, that research achievements ought to be discoverable and accessible so that they can unfold their intended societal impact. Hence, this is why we talk about the SDGs. We just saw statistics, and as a biologist, and it's not to criticize the narrative and the conclusions made by Carlos, quite the contrary, I agree with all he said. I'm not quite in screen mode. Anyways, Zoom fix only. Okay, maybe we leave it like it is now. Just noticing that I'm not in the proper screen mode. But we just need to consider, like my reminder is, which again we are all aware, that we need to understand also how numbers arise, especially when it concerns digital scholarly output, because we depend on persistent identifiers, which is why also we launched Africa Archive to make African research discoverable. So this slide reminds us that most research that's out there, research accomplishments from across the world, are not discoverable currently, or they are discovered in different ways, but to the least digitally, because only so few institutions can actually afford TOIs to make them readily available in your search engine. Also a reminder that open science is just science done right. It's basically reminding us on good scientific practice for researchers. And as we know that the research environment for all the stakeholders is quite a pressured and challenged profession. So we're trying to find our way. I also want to remind us or reference the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Article 27, with 2 paragraphs, which basically say that every human being, irrespective of citizenship, has a right to engage in research, and that every researcher has a right to be referenced and acknowledged for the accomplishments. So that's a basic human right, just as a side note. Therefore, the Environment or UNESCO, the United Nations Education, now the acronyms, Education, Science, Culture Organization, there you go, has launched the Open Science Recommendations, which is an excellent reference point and reminds us also that research is based on values and principles, which as human beings we can all happily sign to. But now how to put this into practice is the difficult part, and the recommendations give guidance. across these 4 pillars. And what I often ask in presentations and trainings is, do you believe that science can help progress towards reaching the SDGs? And I invite you to answer in the chat if you have doubts. We know how difficult it is given the circumstances, but I hope, or I assume that we can all say yes to the question, obviously with a bit of a sore tummy. Yeah, just to postulate a few things for us to agree. The SDGs require globally inclusive research ecosystems. Climate change, health, food security, inequality are all transnational and interconnected challenges. Therefore, we need to work together, and that's why we're here. And this is also what EASE is thankfully facilitating. Not only the conversations, but also putting stakeholders together in the rooms to engage and get to know each other and then come up with joint projects and initiatives. The solutions depend on globally collaborative research that includes voices and expertise from all parts of the world, and especially historically underrepresented regions, because we as humankind are well beyond timely manners to hear and listen and learn from each other, and not but top down kind of thing. Research equity is foundational, but sadly historically evolved. I'm not here to blame and shame and point fingers, but history took its course and continues to do so, or events turn into history. But we as a society are now in charge, and it's in our hands to ensure that access to publishing, funding, infrastructure, and visibility becomes more equal and equitable. And the difference between equality and equity is that those who are currently not in a position to fully enjoy easy access need support, and in different means. And one way is to partner up and then listen what you need and then find ways to provide what's missing. Open science principles and the fair and care principles and practices help democratize participation and improve societal relevance of research outcomes. And here I want to just point out the care principles, which complement the fair principles, which we are all happily familiar with findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable research outputs, but also what is the benefit? Who benefits from the research output? Who's in authority and control of the research data? Who's responsible for whatever may come as a result, however the data is being used, and so on? What other ethical considerations need to be considered? Local knowledge shapes global agendas. We know that, but how do we put this into practice? How do we as publishers, as infrastructure providers, as researchers, each of our stakeholder groups, how can we facilitate that researchers on a local level feel that they're being heard and can actually contribute with the local research or the cross-boundary research that they've engaged in gets the deserved platform. And here is a reference back to the UNESCO recommendation pillars for open dialogue with other knowledge systems, including indigenous peoples' knowledge systems, which is overlapping and also distinct from academia, and open engagement with societal actors. Africa is painfully underrepresented. Of course, it's not the only underrepresented world region, but I would argue it's probably the most severely underrepresented world region. Why that is, we can have a different discussion. I don't know. I don't want to spend time on, but also it might be interesting to explore at another time. However, African scholars produce
Joe, you have
research.
3 minutes left.
Thank
you have 3 minutes left. Thank you.
Thanks. African scholars produce valuable research that is often insufficiently indexed, visible, or accessible international, which again, this is basically a bridge I'm building to the previous presentation. It does not only apply to African scholarship, but also for underrepresented or underfunded institutions, also in the global Northern Hemisphere. Africa Archive, therefore, improves discoverability by, yes, assigning DOIs, by building partnerships and providing DOIs, which are unaffordable for institutions in what's known as the Global South currently, and the DataCite, Crossref, and other stakeholders are working to make them more affordable. But with constrained budgets, it's a long way we have to walk through. Partnerships and open infrastructure are key. Highlighting SDG 17, which is hardly ever mentioned, but is the baseline for all the other goals. So we're here now to build trusted, equitable, and interoperable knowledge system that enable shared learning and long-term impact. This is now important again, but I've mentioned this a few times. We have different stakeholders. So how can we build an ecosystem and also exchange, learn from each other, and build together? Interoperable standards, multilingual, inclusive. Each of the many publishers are already on these topics. Sorry, I'm now just switching through. You're welcome to explore Africa Archive. We are working on the obvious challenges, which all of us are dealing with one way or the other. Africa Archive is here to make African research discoverable in partnership, and also protect African scholarship from misuse and misappropriation through scholarly licenses. So you get all these slides. This is on purpose. That is many slides. I just want to highlight that I'm currently in the process of becoming an infrastructure provider and aiming to also collaborate with journals, publishers, and other stakeholders to build and foster workflows for the researchers to deposit the research and make it discoverable quickly and immediately. First for Africa Archive, but also maybe later this year or next year for other world regions and smaller institutions, because there's a huge gap, as and many of us are aware. This is now based on open source infrastructure such as Dataverse and DSpace, and I'm working with a data center here in Germany. This is just what I just said. It's called WindCloud, and it's a carbon capture facility as a data center, because it not only uses wind power to generate power, but also uses excess heat to feed algae, or to kind of for cultivation of algae farm, which then goes back into a food chain, our human consumption food chain for anyways, and therefore is a carbon capture, so a carbon negative impact, and therefore being positive on the environmental side. So walking the talk, talking the walk. And with that, I want to just shout care to share digital scholar infrastructure. We are already working, like we as infrastructure providers are already working on this, and many publishers are well engaged, and I'm very happy and glad for that. Let's do more of that. And on my website, there's more SDG related work that I want to highlight, how we can use the SDG indicators to be more pointed. But also I want to highlight, because Joe Wixon, who's also in the EAS committee, and this one is also a member in the SDG Publishers Compact Fellows group. And we developed top action tips, which, and the SDG are also, as far as if I'm not mistaken, but I think there was the plan to be co-producers of the SDG guide sheet that EAS is in the process of releasing. Thanks for the time. Sorry for going over time.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Very interesting perspective, this particular approach that you had to explain research and SDG. Now let us move on to our final presenter, Nikesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Haseeb, and thanks Carlos and Joe for a fantastic presentation. Just confirming, Haseeb, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see it. Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. So, hello, everyone. I'll start with a small confession. I'm not a researcher and not an editor, but I've spent my career in between, sitting with the people trying to get their work published. From that seat, you see something the citation data hides. The question for the next 10 minutes is very simple in my mind. Who actually gets to author the science behind the SDGs? Note the subtitle here because my entire point is about that contrast. Research about a region versus research by it. We have never published more research on poverty, climate, and health. But more than half of all global health authors come from just 10 countries, around a quarter from the United States alone. And the best represented low income country, Uganda, accounts for under 2%. So the people closest to the problems are mostly missing from the author list. This slide answers the obvious question. What do I mean by by? Research about a region treats it as a subject. The data is gathered there, the paper is framed and first authored somewhere else. And the local team ends up in the acknowledgement section. Research by a region means local researchers lead it and are named first. And the questions are set by the people who actually live the problem. As I see it, I mean, there are probably a few other barriers as well, but three barriers that probably stand out for me. The first and the very obvious one is the English language tax. A brilliant idea fights its way through a language the author did not grow up writing science in and gets rejected on phrasing rather than the substance. The third one on the right, which is access. So the scaffolding that turns an idea into a publishable paper is everywhere, in some institutions and absent in others. But I think the middle one is the one that I want to really talk about and stand behind the data, because it's very, very easy for us to wave that away. In a study of 27 leading global health journals, 68% of editors sat in high income countries, and 26 of the 27 journals were also published there. A wider sample from a separate study puts it at 84%. When the gatekeepers cluster in a few countries, the questions that feel rigorous quietly tilt the same way. Not by intent, but by familiarity. I recently had done a presentation at the R2R conference in February, and I'd kind of highlighted this as an example. I just wanted to kind of add maybe a few more examples here. So there are three that I wanted to specifically talk about. Not just fairness, accuracy, but three examples with maybe three different axes. To talk about first the Shirley card. So 40 years of color film that calibrated to one light skin tone. This was done by Kodak. Everyone darker came out wrong. No malice intended, just who the standard was built around. The second example is the pulse oximeters that was validated mostly on light skin. They miss dangerously low blood oxygen 3 times more often than in black patients. Crash test dummies. So built around the average 1970s man, maybe somebody with a height of 5 feet 9 inches, 170 pounds. Belted female drivers are 73% more likely to be injured in a frontal crash. The US only approved a more lifelike female dummy. And that happened only in November 2025. At the same time, as we try to widen the gate, we are rightly trying to also defend it. Paper mills and AI-generated submissions are real, and I work on the screening tool, so I'm not arguing against them. But the two drivers collide. Here is some evidence. A Stanford study found that widely used AI writing detectors flagged more than half of essays by non-native English writers as AI generated, while being near perfect on native writers. The signal that looks like fraud, unusual phrasing, an unfamiliar pattern can simply describe an honest researcher who does not write the way the system expects. The same screening that catches fraud also flags the honest author who's simply unfamiliar, and that author often cannot afford to appeal or resubmit. They do not argue, they just disappear, and we lose exactly the paper we said we needed. So, the real challenge facing editors and publishers this decade is not integrity versus inclusion as a choice. It is building integrity tools clever enough to tell fraud apart from the unfamiliarity. I can say this because my side of the table watches good researchers get caught in the wrong net. I'm wary of talks that end by asking everyone to do better because good intentions do not just widen a byline, but actually infrastructure does. So, three things that come to mind. One, real pre submission support. So, as a first time author competes on the idea and not the language or the polishing of it. Two, screening calibrated for fairness, actually tested to confirm it is not penalizing legitimate authors from underrepresented regions. And the third is editorial pipelines that go out and recruit reviewers and board members from those regions rather than waiting for them to arrive. None of this is charity. It is how the science gets better. The Shirley card, the pulse oximeter, and the crash test dummies are all prove the same thing. Leave people out of knowledge for who it is made, and the knowledge is worse for everyone. Every author we bring widens the pool of evidence the goals depend on. If the SDGs are everyone's agenda, then the name on the papers that build the evidence cannot keep coming from a narrow few. Widening who gets to author the science is not a nice to have alongside the goals. It is how we reach them. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion and the questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikesh. Thank you to all our three panelists. I'm really amazed that how they have seen the same thing, the sustainability SDG agenda, from totally different but three different perspectives. I very much appreciate. I'm sure our audience who are very active in the chat are also quite will appreciate as well. I don't, Eva, do you see any questions in the chat that we can address? I can't see any. There is a question in the Q&A.
Yeah, there is
Carlos,
a
for you. It was answered. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Carlos, for that.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that we are
Please.
sharing some relevant links to the resources in the chat, so you can check that. And we will later hear more about the top action tips from SDG Publishers Compact. As you know, or some of you know, is both EASE and European Science Editing journals are signatories of the SDG Publishers Compact, so that's relevant to say. And also we have our DEI committee, which is closely working with our Environmental Sustainability Committee, which are developing some guidelines and also sharing and supporting important initiatives like guidelines on intersectional GIST, so-called GIST recommendations for intersectional analysis in science and technology, which are kind of addressing the important facts that Nikesh has emphasized. How is it important to include all these data in the research? Otherwise, you could end up with a completely wrong set of data. So in that way, and I'm also seeing that Deborah is commenting that there are, at least in a small way, helping with the more experienced authors, helping less experienced one in preparation of their manuscripts. So she's wondering if someone else is doing this.
Sure.
So
Thank
so
you.
for
Thank you,
now,
Eva.
yeah, that's everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva, for that. I have a couple of questions to our panelists. If I may start with Carlos, with you. You have shown that how the global north or global south or LMIC and HIC, the divide is getting reduced, isn't it, in terms of authors number, in terms of SDG papers they produce. But do you think that this particular transformation between these two groups of countries actually affect the collaboration between these two groups, the high-income country and low-income country, in research collaboration in coming years? It could be research collaboration in terms of the change might be in terms of research leadership, consortium framing, dynamics, fund flow. Do you think that might happen? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Haseeb, for the question. That's a very interesting one. And we see some positive trends there. For example, the co-authorship of publications between authors in high-income countries and low and middle-income countries has been growing for the last 10, 20, 30 years. However, we still see clearly that for low and middle income countries, the average rate or share of publications co-authored with other countries is far below the one practiced at high-income countries. High-income countries usually have between 50 and 60% of the publications with international co-authors. Low and middle income countries are at around 25%. There is a gap there, which I believe is related to, there is a cost in collaboration, right?
Sure.
Today you can collaborate without traveling so much, but in past years, people had to travel, and travel is costly for researchers in low and middle income countries. I learned that spending 40 years of my life as a researcher in Brazil. The cost of going to a conference in Europe or the United States was a substantial part of my funding. So there is a positive trend in that, and there is, and I will stop here, this very interesting trend, which is collaboration among research funding organizations. Research funding organizations from the Global South and from the Global North associate and issue calls for proposals where each one is going to fund their part of the research. That has been a very positive development.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Carlos. Now I'd like to ask Joe, you skip it a bit fast, that in terms of infrastructure, moving away from institution-based infrastructure or commercial entity managed infrastructure, you are a proponent of community-managed infrastructure, shared infrastructure, isn't it? It's a very exciting model, no doubt about it. But when we talk about community-based or community-managed, even a community can be quite heterogeneous, isn't it? In terms of the motivation they have, in terms of the vision they have, in terms of collaboration they have, because individual members have individual ideas or the sense of community. How to deal with that to ensure that community infrastructure is sustainable? How to deal with that heterogeneity?
Yeah.
Joe.
Thanks. That's a complex question to answer. Or there's many levels to that deserve lots of thought.
Just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, of course. So it's not to move away from institutional repositories, but I think we've seen all that only so few institutions can actually afford to maintain a repository. And also those who have one, it's difficult to convince the researchers to actually deposit the work there unless it's mandatory and well taken care of. And also the researchers need to be reminded that the service exists in the first place, which is work in its own. But most institutions struggle, even if they have a repository, it requires, now that's digital format, it requires maintenance, updates, which often is beyond the kind of the knowledge of librarians who are in charge. So it's beyond their scope of work and also what they're actually capable of, because they don't have the training in system administration. So this is what I've seen over the years also with Africa Archive, which is why repositories have emerged that cater for wider communities. And yes, community building takes also several years to have some sort of maintenance and togetherness feeling and a sense of togetherness in the first place. But we have Zenodo, we have Figshare, we have Science Open is also maintains repositories. So they're open science framework. So there are several general repositories which are discipline agnostic. So they invite all disciplines. And yes, I'm in the process of offering another one based on open source infrastructure, because that's what I've learned over the years also with Africa Archive, to build on infrastructure that has a track record and a community already for maintenance, so technical sustainability. And then the community level is a whole other arm of operation. But yeah, I mean, we can spend hours to go into all details, but yeah, what you mentioned are important points to consider, and it's not easily done. But for me, there's or for anyone who requires a scope for which community are we talking about, who do we do this for, what is the goal at the end of the day, besides discoverability and so on.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. Nikesh, I have a question for you. Of course, we are focusing our conversation discussion on the stakeholders who are part of the publishing ecosystem, like publishers, editors, authors, reviewers. But do you think that any other stakeholders we should be aware of or bring them in the SDG-related conversation, like research funder, policymaker, research institution, administrators? What is your thought on that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Haseeb. I think maybe three stakeholders that come to my mind, and if I've missed out, then others can add as well. First, I think funders, because they shape what gets studied and credited before any journal sees it. Second, I think our organizations that do indexing. A strong paper, for example, say in a non-indexed Brazilian journal, is invisible, and that call is made by databases and not the publishers. And third is maybe vendors, technology vendors specifically. The companies that are building the screening and AI tools are now de facto policy actors. And if we are not in the conversation, the policy still happens, just less transparently.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We are at the end of this session. Thank you to all the panelists for their brilliant presentation. Those who are wondering, these presentations will be shared with you by ease, as well as the recording. Thank you all for your comments as well, for participating actively. Now, before we end this session, Mary, I think we have a small video to show our audience.
Hi, my name's Simon Lineker, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Cabbles, and I'm here today to talk to you about the SDG Publishers Compact Fellows. So, who are we? Well, we collaborate with publishers, editors, practitioners, policymakers, and all the other stakeholders in scholarly publishing to facilitate progress towards the SDGs. Our work comes under the auspices of the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, or HESI, at the United Nations, and fundamentally we're supporting publishers of all sizes to sign up to the SDG Publishers Compact and take action to support the SDGs. Now, what does this look like? What kind of things will we do? Well, you can see on the screen here one of the things that we've been doing, which is our list of top action tips. They are for a range of stakeholders such as authors, publishers, etc., and also include editors. And you can see here a downloadable PDF which shows the kind of things that academic journal editors can do to help achieve the SDGs. Now, happily, this also dovetails with something that you'll also be familiar with, which is the EASE SDG checklist, which supports publishers, editors and journals in tracking progress and reporting on SDG actions. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Very useful information. Please do have a look into those. Mary, I think we have a couple of more sessions today. Can you share the slide so that I can inform our audience? Well, we have a couple of more sessions to go. At 2 o'clock, of course, it is UK time. We will be having the session on what are journals for, stakeholder, mission, and sustainability. And at 4 o'clock, as I mentioned earlier, that ISMT session is happening. It will not be recorded, which is about harnessing community and innovation to strengthen standards in peer review. I hope you will be able to join in these 2 sessions. I here by thanking you all, our fantastic panelists, as well as the fantastic audience. I wish you all the best and you enjoy the rest of the symposium. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Meet Jams, the editorial partner you always wished you'd had. Running a scholarly journal is serious work. Too many journals still rely on a manual process or system that was never built for how publishing actually works. Jams is an end-to-end platform built specifically for scholarly publishers, from submission to publication, all in one place. Submission management, peer review, APC billing, journal website hosting, and real editorial guidance from publishing experts. Jams is built for journals of every size and every budget, including a free tier if you publish up to 20 articles per year. Whether you publish 10 papers or 1,000, Jams grows with you every step of the way. Backed by MDPI's 30 years of open access experience and a team that has helped grow over 500 journals worldwide. No lock-in, no surprises, just the support your journal actually needs. So come talk to us today, or visit jams.pub to learn more and get started for free.